When Daniel Richardson came home that Saturday afternoon, he heard something that shouldn't have been possible. Laughter, music, the sound of children being children. His hands started shaking as he stood at the front door, because those sounds had died 8 months ago when his wife took her last breath. Those sounds disappeared the day his 3 daughters stopped talking, stopped smiling, stopped living. He'd spent $35,000 on experts who couldn't reach them. He'd hired specialists who gave up and walked away. But now, standing in his own hallway, he heard something that terrified him and gave him hope at the same time. Someone had done the impossible. Someone had brought his daughters back to life. And when he pushed open that kitchen door and saw what was happening, this powerful man fell to his knees and cried like a child, because the woman who saved his family wasn't a doctor or a therapist. She was a maid with worn-out shoes who understood something he'd forgotten. That love doesn't need credentials. It just needs to show up. This is a story of how one woman's courage brought a broken family back from the edge. And I promise you, by the end, you'll believe in miracles again. Welcome to Radiant Story and Tales. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you are watching from. Let me tell you about a man named Daniel Richardson. He had everything most people dream about: a beautiful home in Seattle overlooking the water, a successful business, money that could solve almost any problem. But on one cold morning in February, Daniel learned something that would break him completely. Money can't buy back the people you love. His wife Emma died that day. Just like that. She was at her yoga class, laughing with friends one moment, and then her heart just stopped. The doctors called it sudden cardiac arrest. She was only 39 years old. By the time Daniel got to hospital, she was already gone. No goodbye, no last words. Just gone. But this story isn't really about Daniel. It's about his 3 daughters. 7-year-old twins Lily and Grace and their sister Ruby. 3 little girls who lost their mother and didn't know how to keep breathing in a world that suddenly felt too big and too empty. You know what grief does to children? It doesn't make them cry all the time like you might think. Sometimes it just makes them disappear. That's what happened to these 3 girls. They stopped talking, stopped playing, stopped being children. They would sit together by the window, 3 small shadows looking out at nothing, feeling everything. Daniel tried. God knows he tried. He hired the best child psychologist in the state, a woman from Yale, with a waiting list 6 months long. He paid her triple to come immediately. She brought games and tests and all her fancy methods. The girls just stared at the floor. 5 weeks and $35,000 later, she admitted she couldn't help them. Then came the celebrity nanny, the one who'd raised children for billionaires and movie stars. She had rules and schedules and organic meal plans. But when she tried to force the girls outside one afternoon, little Ruby had a panic attack. Couldn't breathe. Just shook and gasped like the world was ending. The nanny left after 3 weeks. Daniel stood in that big empty house and felt like he was drowning. Here he was, a man who built a company from nothing, who solved impossible problems for a living, and he couldn't help his own daughters. He couldn't reach them. Every night he'd stand outside their bedroom and listen to them cry themselves to sleep. And he'd think, I have everything and I have nothing. 8 months passed like this. 8 months of silence. 8 months of watching his daughters fade away a little more each day. 8 months of Daniel working longer hours because at least at the office, he knew what to do. At home, he was just a man failing the people who needed him most. Then one Tuesday afternoon, a young woman showed up at his door. Her name was Isabel Santos. She had worn-out shoes, no fancy degrees, just a simple resume and kind eyes. Daniel's house manager had already decided she wasn't qualified, but Isabel asked for just 5 minutes to talk to him. They sat in his office, this wealthy man and this struggling young woman. Daniel barely looked up from his computer. Why should I hire you? He asked. Isabel took a deep breath. Because I lost my mama when I was 9 years old, Mr. Richardson. And what saved me wasn't someone with all the answers. It was someone who just sat with me in the pain. Someone who didn't try to rush me through it or fix me. Just someone who stayed. Daniel finally looked up. Something in her voice made him stop. made him really see her. Maybe that's what your daughters need too, Isabel said softly. Not someone to fix them, just someone to stay. Daniel felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been closed tight for 8 months. When can you start? Tomorrow, sir. That first evening, Isabel didn't try to make the girls talk, didn't force smiles or games. She just moved through the house quietly and started humming an old song her grandmother used to sing, soft and warm, like something the house had been missing for a long time. Daniel stood in the hallway and listened for the first time in 8 months. The silence felt different. Not good yet, but different. Like maybe, just maybe, something was about to change. He didn't know it then, but Isabel would soon find something hidden in Emma's study. Something that would change everything. A journal filled with love and plans, and one unfinished letter that would break his heart and heal it at the same time. But that night, all Daniel knew was this. He'd hired a young woman with nothing but kindness and hope. And somehow, that felt like more than all the experts and their degrees combined. The house settled into darkness. 3 little girls slept fitfully upstairs. A father sat alone in his study, surrounded by success that meant nothing. And a young woman with worn shoes prayed in her small room that God would show her how to reach these broken hearts. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones with the biggest credentials. Sometimes they're just the ones brave enough to show up and stay. To sit in the darkness with us until our eyes adjust and we can see light again. This is a story about that kind of love. The kind that doesn't give up. The kind that shows up even when it's hard. The kind that believes broken things can heal if someone cares enough to hold the pieces together. And it all started with one simple question. When can you start? Tomorrow, sir. Tomorrow. Sometimes that's all the hope we need. Isabel started the next morning before the sun came up. She made breakfast in that big, cold kitchen. Scrambled eggs and toast. Nothing fancy. Just food that smelled like someone cared. When the 3 girls came downstairs, they stopped in the doorway and stared at her with those big, sad eyes. Good morning, sweethearts, Isabel said gently. I made breakfast if you're hungry. But if you're not, that's okay too. The girls didn't answer. Just stood there like little statues. Isabel didn't push. She just hummed while she worked, that same old one from the night before. After a long minute, Lily walked to the table first. Then Grace and Ruby followed. They sat down and ate in silence. But they ate, and Isabel knew that was enough for today. This became their rhythm. Isabel would cook and clean and hum her grandmother's songs. The girls would watch her from doorways and corners. Nobody forced anything. Nobody demanded words that weren't ready to come out yet. Just presence. Just staying. On the 3rd day, Isabel heard one of the girls whisper something. She couldn't make out the words, but it was the first sound besides crying that she'd heard from them. Her heart nearly burst. On the 5th day, Grace stood in the kitchen doorway, watching Isabel bake bread. Just stood there for the longest time. Isabel kept kneading the dough, humming softly, letting the smell of yeast and warmth fill the house. Smells good, doesn't it? Isabel said quietly, not looking up. Grace didn't answer, but she didn't leave either. And that meant everything. That same afternoon, while the girls were resting, Isabel decided to clean Emma's study. Daniel had told her once, his voice tight with pain, that room stays closed. I'm not ready. But Isabel believed love shouldn't be locked away in the dark gathering dust. She opened the door slowly. The room still smelled like perfume. Emma's reading glasses sat on the desk next to a coffee cup. The coffee long cold and forgotten. Books lined the shelves. Photos covered the walls. A whole life just frozen in time. Isabel moved carefully through the room, treating everything like it was sacred. That's when she found it. A leather journal tucked in the desk drawer. She opened it with shaking hands. The first page in beautiful handwriting. Emma's birthday traditions for the girls. Isabel's breath caught in her throat. She turned the pages slowly. Recipes, photos, notes about what each girl loved, memories written down like prayers. And then near the back, an unfinished letter. To my precious girls on your 8th birthday. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. She looked at the small calendar on Emma's desk. Dates circled in red marker. February 15th. Circled and starred and highlighted. Isabel pulled out her phone with trembling hands and checked today's date. February 9th. Her heart stopped. The girl's 8th birthday was in 6 days. And judging by the silence in this house, by the way Daniel moved through life like a ghost, he'd completely forgotten. Isabel sat down on the floor, journal in her lap, and cried. Not from sadness alone. From knowing exactly what she had to do. She had 6 days to honor a dead woman's wishes. 6 days to help 3 little girls remember it was okay to celebrate being alive. That evening, something happened that changed everything. After dinner, while Daniel buried himself in his office with work calls, Isabel was washing dishes. She heard small footsteps behind her. Lily stood in the doorway, clutching a book to her chest. "Hi, sweetheart," Isabel said softly. "Need something?" Lily didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice so small Isabel almost missed it, "Why you hum all the time?" Isabel's heart squeezed. She turned off the water, dried her hands, and knelt down to Lily's level. "My grandmother raised me," she said gently. "And when I was sad, really sad, she used to hum while she cooked or cleaned. She told me music makes the heavy things feel lighter." Lily looked down at her book. "Does it work?" "Sometimes," Isabel said honestly. "Not always, but it helps me remember I'm not alone." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Do you miss your mama?" "Every single day," Isabel said. "Even now, even after all these years." "Does it ever stop hurting?" Lily's voice cracked when she asked it. Isabel took a breath. "It gets different. The hurt doesn't go away completely, but it gets softer, like it makes room for other feelings too. Happy memories, love, joy, they can all live together." Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I miss my mama so much." "I know, baby. I know." And then something happened that hadn't happened in 8 months. Lily stepped forward and wrapped her thin arms around Isabel's neck. Isabel held her while she cried. Just held her. Didn't say it would all be okay. Didn't try to fix the pain. Just stayed. A few moments later, Isabel felt 2 more small bodies press against her. Grace and Ruby. All 3 girls crying in her arms. And Isabel, this woman who'd been hired to clean floors and fold laundry, held them like they were the most precious things in the world. Upstairs, Daniel stood at the top of the stairs, frozen. He'd come down to ask Isabel a question, but he couldn't move, couldn't speak, because for the first time in 8 months, his daughters were letting someone in. He backed away quietly, went to his room, and sat on the edge of his bed. And for the first time since Emma's funeral, Daniel Richardson let himself cry, not from sadness alone, from something he'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. Maybe they could survive this. Maybe they could heal. Maybe this woman with worn shoes and grandmother's hymns was exactly who God sent when Daniel had run out of answers. The next morning, the girls were waiting for Isabel in the kitchen. Not hiding, not silent, waiting, like they'd been hoping she'd come. "Good morning," Isabel said, trying to keep her voice steady even though her heart was racing with joy. "Good morning," Grace whispered back. It was the first greeting Isabel had heard from any of them. She had to turn away for a moment so they wouldn't see her tears. She made pancakes that morning. Simple ones, slightly burned on the edges, the way real people make them. While they ate, Ruby spoke up. "Our mama used to make pancakes on Saturdays." The room went still. Isabel set down the spatula slowly. "Yeah? What kind did she make?" "Chocolate chip," Lily said quietly. "She let us put the chips in ourselves. We always put way too many." Isabel smiled. "That's the best way to do it." Grace looked up, her eyes uncertain. Do you think it's okay to talk about her?" Isabel pulled out a chair and sat down with them. "Baby, it's more than okay. Your mama loved you so much. Talking about her keeps that love alive." "Daddy doesn't talk about her," Ruby said, her voice small. "He gets too sad." Isabel's throat tightened. "Your daddy's hurting too. Sometimes grown-ups don't know how to talk about the hard things. But that doesn't mean you can't." And then the girls started talking. Really talking. For the first time in 8 months, they told stories about their mother, about birthday parties and bedtime songs, about Saturday morning dance parties in the kitchen, about how Emma would let them pick out their own clothes, always in their favorite colors. Isabel listened to every word, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. That afternoon, while the girls rested, Isabel went back to Emma's study. She read the journal more carefully this time. Emma had written detailed plans for their 8th birthday, the dresses they should wear, the cake recipe, even a letter she'd started but never finished. To my girls, on your 8th birthday, if I could give you one gift, it would be this: permission to be happy, even when you miss me, especially when you miss me, because love doesn't end, my darlings. It just changes shape. And the greatest way to honor someone you've lost is to keep living, keep laughing, keep loving. The letter stopped there, unfinished. Isabel wiped her eyes and made a decision right then. She was going to finish what Emma started. That evening, when Daniel came home, Isabel was in the kitchen making dinner. He walked past the girls without really seeing them, his mind somewhere else, his briefcase heavy in his hand. At dinner, he asked the girls about their day. They gave one-word answers, and Isabel saw how his shoulders sagged a little more with each silence. After dinner, Daniel disappeared to his office. Isabel started washing dishes. A few minutes later, she heard his voice from the doorway behind her. "Isabel," he said. She turned around. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, Mr. Richardson." "When is their birthday?" Isabel's chest tightened. She saw the panic flood his face as he pulled out his phone with shaking hands. "When is it?" he asked again, his voice breaking. "February 15th, sir." Daniel checked his calendar. His face went pale. "Oh, God, that's in 4 days. I completely forgot." "It's okay." "It's not okay." His voice cracked. What kind of father forgets his own daughter's birthday? Emma would have had everything planned by now. The party, the cake, everything. Isabel stepped closer. What if we did something small? Just us. Something she would have wanted. Daniel looked up, his eyes red. "Do you think they want that?" "I think," Isabel said softly, "they need it more than you know." But the next morning, Daniel left for work before sunrise. Isabel stood at the window, watching his car disappear down the driveway. He was running again, running from the pain, from the memories, from the date circled in red on the calendar. Later that morning, when the girls came downstairs, they asked, "Is Daddy still here?" Isabel's heart sank. He had to leave early for work. Sweetheart. The light in their eyes dimmed. They ate breakfast quietly. Not the heavy silence from before, just disappointment that their father had chosen work over them again. After breakfast, Isabel sat with them at the table. "Can I tell you girls something?" They nodded. "Your daddy loves you so much. You know that, right? Then why does he leave all the time?" Grace asked, her voice small. Isabel chose her words carefully. "Sometimes when people are really, really sad, they don't know how to be around the people they love most. Because it hurts too much. Not because of you. Because they miss the person who's gone." "He misses Mama," Lily said. "So much," Isabel agreed. "Just like you do." Ruby looked down at her hands. "We never talk about her when Daddy's home. It makes him too sad." "I know, baby. But we want to talk about her," Grace whispered. "We want to remember." Isabel pulled them close. "Then we'll remember together." "Okay." They nodded against her, and Isabel made her final decision. She was doing this birthday celebration with, or without Daniel's permission. Those girls deserved to feel loved. They deserved to honor their mother's memory. They deserved to know it was okay to be happy again. She had 4 days. 4 days to plan a small miracle. 4 days to do what Emma couldn't. 4 days to show these girls that love doesn't end just because someone dies. That night, alone in the kitchen, Isabel opened Emma's journal and whispered, "I won't let them forget you, Emma. I promise." Somewhere between grief and hope, something was shifting. A father was running from pain. 3 daughters were learning to live again. And a young woman with nothing but love was about to show them all what healing really looks like. Saturday morning, February 15th. Isabel woke up at dawn with her heart pounding. This was it, the day she'd been planning in secret, the day that could either heal this family or get her fired. But she'd made peace with that risk days ago. She got dressed and went to wake the girls. They were sleeping close together like always, 3 small bodies finding safety in each other. Isabel sat on the edge of the bed and gently touched Lily's shoulder. Girls, wake up. They stirred slowly, blinking in the early light. What time is it? Grace mumbled. Isabel smiled softly. Time to celebrate. She pulled out Emma's journal from behind her back. All 3 girls sat up immediately, their eyes wide. That's... Ruby's voice caught. That's Mama's. It is, Isabel said, and she left something in here for you. She opened the birthday page and watched their faces as they read their mother's handwriting. The plans, the recipes, the love poured into every word. Lily traced the letters with her finger, tears streaming down her face. She wrote this before she died, Grace whispered. She did, Isabel said, her throat tight, because love always knows. She knew you'd need this. Ruby looked up. Do you know what today is? Isabel nodded. It's February 15th. It's your 8th birthday. The words hung in the air. Lily spoke first. We thought maybe we weren't supposed to have birthdays anymore. Isabel's heart broke. Baby, why would you think that? Because Mama's not here and Daddy never said anything. So we thought maybe birthdays died with her. Isabel pulled all 3 of them close. Listen to me. Your Mama wrote in here that if she could give you one gift, it would be permission to be happy, even when you're sad, even when you miss her, but especially when you miss her. But how? Ruby asked, how do we be happy when it hurts this much? By choosing it, Isabel said gently, one moment at a time. And today, we're going to choose it together. An hour later, the kitchen was transformed. Isabel had put on the Beatles. Here Comes the Sun played softly. On the counter sat everything they needed, mixing bowls, flour, eggs, sugar, Emma's recipe written in her own hand. The girls stood at the counter in their new dresses, blue for Lily, red for Grace, green for Ruby. They looked nervous and excited and terrified all at once. Mama always let us crack the eggs, Lily said quietly. Then you crack the eggs, Isabel said, handing her one. Lily's hand shook. The egg cracked, shell falling into the bowl along with the yolk. I messed it up. No, you didn't. Your Mama's recipe says right here. Let them make a mess. That's where the love gets in. Grace picked out the shell pieces carefully. She really wrote that? She really did. They worked together, following Emma's notes exactly. Ruby added extra vanilla, just like the recipe said she would. Grace snuck chocolate chips when she thought no one was looking. Lily stirred with her whole body, the way children do when they're fully present. And slowly, something beautiful happened. They started laughing. Not forced, not pretend. Real laughter, the kind that comes from deep inside when joy remembers it's allowed to exist. Flour dusted their dresses. Batter splattered the counter. The kitchen looked like a disaster. It looked like life. Mama would love this mess, Ruby said, smiling through tears. She would, Isabel agreed, her own eyes wet. While the cake baked, they made frosting. Simple vanilla buttercream. The girls took turns with the mixer, adding food coloring to make it perfect. It smells like her, Grace said suddenly, like when she used to bake. That's because you're doing exactly what she did, Isabel said. You're keeping her love alive. When the cake was done and cooled, they decorated it together. Not perfectly, not like a bakery, but with 4 pairs of hands and 1 shared heart. Ruby wrote Happy Birthday in wobbly frosting letters. Lily added sprinkles, way too many just right. Grace placed the candles. And Isabel stood back, watching these 3 girls who'd been silent for 8 months. Finally remembering how to be children again. Should we wait for Daddy? Lily asked. Isabel's stomach dropped. Daniel had left at 6 that morning. Said he had to go to the office. He was still running. Still couldn't face this day. I don't know when he'll be home, sweetheart. He forgot again, didn't he? Ruby said quietly. Isabel knelt to their level. Your daddy is hurting so much he can't see straight. But that doesn't mean you can't celebrate. That doesn't mean your mama's love doesn't count. What if he gets mad that we did this without him? Grace asked. Then I'll take the blame, Isabel said firmly. This is on me, not you. Never you. They nodded. But Isabel saw the worry in their eyes. She lit the candles. 8 small flames flickering in the afternoon light. Ready? She asked. The girls held hands. Together, they started to sing, Happy Birthday to You. Their voices were shaky at first, then stronger, filling the kitchen with sound that hadn't existed in this house for so long. Isabel joined in, harmony weaving through their melody. Happy birthday, dear Lily, Grace, and Ruby. They were crying and smiling at the same time. Happy birthday to you. The candles wavered. Make a wish, Isabel whispered. The girls closed their eyes, leaned in together, and blew. The flames went out. Smoke curled upward. And in that moment, something broke open. Not in a painful way. In the way a heart breaks open after being closed too long. They clapped, laughed, hugged each other. Isabel cut the cake, served them each a slice. They ate with their fingers, frosting on their faces, talking about their mother, about the cake, about how good it felt to smile again. The kitchen was full of music and mess and beautiful, broken, healing love. And then they heard it. A key in the lock. The front door opening. Footsteps in the hallway. They all froze. Daddy, Ruby whispered. Daniel stood in the doorway, and the world stopped. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what he was seeing. His 3 daughters, dressed in bright colors he hadn't seen them wear in months, sat at the table with frosting on their faces and light in their eyes. And Isabel stood behind them, holding a homemade birthday cake. The room smelled like vanilla and sugar and something he thought had died with Emma. It smelled like home. Daddy, Lily whispered. The word destroyed him. His briefcase hit the floor. His hand went to his mouth. And Daniel Richardson, a man who'd built an empire, who'd faced down boardrooms full of executives, who'd never let anyone see him weak, fell to his knees. A sound came out of him that didn't even sound human, deep and guttural. The sound of 8 months of held grief finally breaking through. I forgot, he choked out. I forgot your birthday. I forgot. But before he could finish, 3 small bodies crashed into him. Lily, Grace, Ruby, wrapping their arms around his neck, his shoulders, his chest, holding him while he shattered. It's okay, Daddy, Grace said, her small hand on his wet face. We thought you forgot because you were sad, Ruby added. But Isabel remembered. Lily said, she found Mama's journal. She helped us make Mama's cake. Daniel looked up through his tears at Isabel. She stood quietly by the table, giving them space, her own eyes filled with tears. You, his voice broke. You did this. Isabel nodded. I hope that's okay. Okay. Daniel pulled his daughters tighter. You gave them back their childhood. No, sir, Isabel said softly. They never lost it. They just needed permission to find it again. Daniel looked at his daughters, really looked at them. They were smiling, actually smiling. Their eyes weren't empty anymore. They weren't ghosts. They were his girls. I'm so sorry, he whispered to them. I've been so lost without your mama. I forgot you were lost too. We were really lost, Daddy, Ruby said quietly. But Isabel helped us find our way back. She told us Mama would want us to be happy, Grace added, even when we're sad. Daniel pressed his forehead against theirs. She would. God, she would. For a long moment, they just held each other, a father and his daughters, finally present, finally together. Then Ruby pulled back slightly. Daddy, do you want some cake? We made it. Isabel helped, but we did most of it. Daniel laughed through his tears. I would love some cake. They pulled him to his feet, leading him to the table. Isabel had already cut him a slice. He sat down, looked at the cake, simple and imperfect and made with love. He took a bite. The taste hit him like a memory. This is... His voice cracked. This is Emma's recipe. Isabel found it in Mama's journal, Lily explained. She wrote down everything. The recipe, the dresses, everything. Daniel looked at Isabel again. You found her journal? In her study, sir. I hope that was all right. Thank you, Daniel said, his voice barely a whisper. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't. Isabel nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. The five of them sat at that table eating birthday cake on a Saturday afternoon. And for the first time in 8 months, the silence wasn't heavy. It was full of presence, full of memory, full of love that refused to die just because someone was gone. Later that evening, after the girls went upstairs to play, Daniel found Isabel cleaning up the kitchen. Let me help, he said. They worked in silence for a few minutes. Finally, Daniel spoke. I've been drowning since Emma died, going through the motions, but not really there. I convinced myself I was protecting them, protecting myself. But the truth is, I was just running. Grief does that, Isabel said gently. But you didn't run. You showed up. You loved my daughters when I was too broken to figure out how. He paused. Why did you do this? You could have lost your job. Why risk it? Isabel was quiet for a moment. Because I know what it's like to be those girls. I know what it feels like when everyone's trying to fix you, but nobody's just sitting with you. And I know what it's like when someone finally does. Her voice cracked. Your daughters needed that. And if I lost my job giving it to them, then that was a risk worth taking. Daniel stared at her. You're not just a maid, Isabel. You're family now. Whether you planned it or not, you're part of this family. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. Upstairs, they could hear the girls laughing. Actually laughing. The sound floated down like music. 2 weeks later, Daniel called Isabel into his study. I want to talk to you about your future, he began. He slid a folder across the desk. I'll pay for your education. Full tuition, wherever you want to go. And when you graduate, there's a permanent position here. Not as a maid, as my daughter's educator and caregiver. Full salary, benefits, your own space. You be part of this family officially. Isabel couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. This isn't charity, Daniel continued. This is family taking care of family. Because you did it for us first. That evening, Daniel told the girls, Isabel's going to stay. Not just as someone who works here. As family. Forever. Grace asked, her voice hopeful. As long as she wants, Daniel said. The girls launched themselves at Isabel, hugging her, crying, laughing. We love you, Lily said. I love you too, Isabel whispered back. So much. That night, Daniel stood in Emma's study and finished the letter she'd started. He wrote about love and presence and learning that showing up is more powerful than being perfect. He wrote about Isabel and how God sends healing through unlikely people. Outside, the lights of Seattle glittered across the water. Inside, a family that had been shattered was learning to be whole again. Different than before, forever changed, but together. And sometimes, that's what grace looks like. Not fixing everything, not erasing the pain. Just showing up, just loving through the darkness. Just remembering that even in the deepest grief, something beautiful can still grow. Love doesn't end when someone dies. It just finds new ways to show up, new hearts to work through, new hands to hold. And in that house in Seattle, where silence once ruled, there was music again. There was laughter again. There was life again. Because one woman with worn shoes and a grandmother's hymn decided that broken things are worth fighting for. That children deserve joy even in their grief. That families can heal if someone cares enough to stay. This is what hope looks like. This is what love does. This is how we survive the impossible. We show up. We stay. We remember that presence is the greatest gift we can give. And we never, ever stop believing that tomorrow can be better than today.